Do you want to start or?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Are you good?
Yep.
So if you want to just start us out by just telling us a bit about your background, who you are, what you've done, and what you're currently doing.
Okay, cool. So I am a co-founder of Wanderfly, which is a travel inspiration site. And specifically my remit is director of marketing, so that sort of covers everything from content to user acquisition, to some sort of product related stuff as it pertains to marketing. So I've been doing that for, I guess Wanderfly started maybe like a couple years ago. And before that, I founded a consultancy, sort of similar to PSFK in some ways, called Living Breathing, and basically strategy, web production, sort of mostly around brand strategy as it pertains to digital. And then before that, I basically came out of the agency world as a brand planner or strategist, so at Y&R, and then Pro Fisher, which is a design consultancy. So my background's been like brands, marketing, strategy, plannery type stuff.
Okay. And how did that background in branding and strategy, how did that translate into Wanderfly? And can you just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing at Wanderfly?
Yeah, sure. So it has translated pretty well in that Wanderfly, is a startup, so we're really defining a completely new brand, and we have done that not sort of just sort of fly by the seat of our pants and sort of the build it and they will come sort of philosophy that some people have, but we've sort of built it from the very beginning, knowing that you have to build a brand around it and sort of have a consumer need around it, otherwise people won't actually come to the thing. I do everything right now from helping to define certain like brand principles, in terms of what's the tone of it and how does it speak and how does that translate into brand identity. But I also do a lot having to do with acquisition of customers, especially within digital. So that has to do with different types of advertising that we do, social media, email strategy, etc. And then the third kind of piece that I do is around the actual product itself. So we're trying to make a really viral and social product and use the product in order to drive more people to us. So it's sort of marketing through the product, if that makes sense. So I work a lot with the developers and the designers to build some of those viral loops in the product.
Okay. So you just want to talk about Wanderfly itself as a product, sort of what it was, or what it exists today as.
Sure. So we are a travel recommendation engine. That's sort of the technology that it's built on, and the idea is we're helping people discover travel. If you think about like typical travel sites today, like the big ones like Expedia, Orbitz, Travelocity, whatever, they're there when people know exactly what it is that they want. When they're like, all right, I'm going to Paris, in 4 weeks from now, and I need a ticket or I need a hotel, right? It's very transactional all around the booking. We're sort of a couple steps beforehand when you're like, all right, well, I know I want to get away, but I need help with that. I need help generating ideas and whatnot. So we have a database of thousands of different cities and experiences around the world where you input a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how much you want to spend and your interests as a traveler, and we recommend places to you. So we sort of take your input as a traveler and match that profile with the data that we have around different cities and experiences, and we present to people full trip recommendations.
And can you just talk about like Wanderlist and some of the like the other curational aspects?
So we sort of had the perspective since the very beginning that great recommendations for travel can come from anybody, right? Some sites think it's all around social, and so they're like, we tap your Facebook friends, and truth be told, there are a ton of friends that I don't trust on Facebook for travel advice. You know what I mean? So yes, that's part of the solution, but another part is, you know, so you listen to your friends, you listen to brands too. Like you might pick up the New York Times, like 36 Hours in Paris, and that's a great guide for stuff. And then you also listen to sometimes complete strangers on the internet, but as long as they have the same profile as you do, you know. So if I get recommendations from other 29-year-olds who live in Brooklyn who are into, you know, this type of stuff that I'm into, like even though I don't know that person, that's a good recommendation. So we try to invite different curators, and those can be sort of individuals who have some sort of interesting perspective on travel, but it can also be different brands that have a perspective. So we work with everyone from like traditional travel brands like Frommer's and AOL, to like lifestyle brands like Havaianas, which is a Brazilian flip-flop company, right? You don't think they have anything to do with travel, but then you're like, wait a second, like they know about beaches, you know, and that's very relevant. We think it's interesting to, you know, and without sort of making those lists like ads and stuff, but just have brands give real editorial content that's relevant to people, but endorsed by, you know, some brand.
Okay. And so as far as like the Wanderfly front versus Wanderlist, do those play into that, or do those exist as separate ecosystems?
No, they're like all part of the same,
Okay.
part of the same thing. So you go to like wanderfly.com/wanderlist or whatever it is, and it's all within there. And when you search Wanderfly for different travel experiences, occasionally you may see some of the content from the brands who make the Wanderlist pop up.
Okay. And then as far as social recommendations, does that play into the initial Wanderfly recommendation, or is that more of a list function where you can see what your friends are saying?
Yeah. So right now it functions sort of after the fact. So if we say, hey, you should go to Miami or something like that, if you log in through Facebook, you can see how many of your friends live there, who's been there, who wants to go there. We right now don't factor that into the initial recommendation. Like we don't say we gave you Miami because you have a ton of friends there. We kind of insert it in as like a fact about Miami. But going forward, we're basically going to relaunch the site in 2-3 months from now, and there's going to be a lot more of the social stuff that is built into the recommendations itself.
Okay. And do the recommendations take into account the profile of who you are age-wise, or is it just sort of that, you know, contextual, like I'm looking for a destination with arts and food?
Yeah, so it's contextual right now, but the relaunch is you're gonna tell us a lot more about who you are as a person, not just what types of things you like to do when you travel, and so it will be a lot more fleshed out in that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you have these recommendations as far as the sites and the destinations that you're recommending. How do you determine, you know, like what fills that list? Where do you get those destinations?
So we have the in-house like content team that basically they act as sort of our resident travel experts, and we write a lot of our own content. But we also work with a lot of our partners who curate some of the Wanderlists, and they have a ton of content that they create for us as well. And then going forward, we're going to open that up to users, so you'll be able to, you know, input different travel experiences and stuff like that.
Okay. Can you speak to sort of like the transportation of Wanderfly in the way that I think right now it's just air travel, and how you see that evolving, like if you're going to stay with air travel, become multimodal.
Yeah, you mean like going into like cars
or like, you know, train, yeah. Any other way to connect with your destination beyond just airlines?
I think we're going to probably stick with flights. It's not, you know, our focus is a lot less on the actual booking and sort of the purchase of the tickets and stuff like that, and much more on the inspiration and discovery of those things. So you know, we would rather focus our time on like, you know, building out more city content and more experiences around that content rather than working through some of the transportation logistics. So I think we're just sticking to like flights and stuff.
Okay, so just more destination oriented.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your target market for Wanderfly?
I would say that the average age would be like 20s, 30s, sort of like sort of like influencer, digitalati type people. It's really for people who are sort of interested in exploring travel, interested in discovering new ideas, and ultimately people that kind of want to like sort of shortcut the process a little bit and don't want to, rather than opening up 25 different browser tabs, searching all these sites, like kind of go to one place where you can get recommendations. I don't know. I mean, our demographics kind of span a lot, but I would say, in terms of the mindset, it's those who just want to, explore and get new ideas.
Okay. Do you think?
Sorry, one sec. This has happened before. Great.
So that's sort of the target market that you have in mind, but do you think that a service like yours translates beyond, like quote unquote digital natives? Or rather, do you think like markets beyond that are ready for really tech-centric services to help travel?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've had people say like, when you have like big buttons and it's very visual, like, people are like, even my grandmother could use this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, people like big buttons, And what's interesting, like we have users from over like 205 countries, and it just goes to show that even though we haven't localized for any country, it's like no matter who you are, if you like beautiful imagery and just an easy sort of navigation, that is like universally accepted, whether you're a real digital native or not.
Yeah. So then just thinking about travel industry in general, where do you feel like the industry is headed in short term? I know this is like a really broad question, mm-hmm. but short term and long term, where do you see yourself and other competitors moving with the different spaces?
I see it moving like a lot more local. So you get a lot of new startups like let's say like Viable, or there are a ton in sort of the P2P market, which is interesting. When you think of like Airbnb, Viable, even like Skillshare, I know they're not a travel company, but this idea of like individual people, local people have some sort of knowledge or some sort of trade or some sort of experience that they can lend to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I think in general, this, and you can tie it back to bigger trends like just like the artisan movement and all this stuff, like people just kind of want more authentic and real experiences, so like our most clicked on trip theme is like adventure travel right now for people. It's sort of a little different than like just a plain old beach vacation, it's like people want to experience something real. So I think there's sort of a move to that and empowering individuals who are actually on the ground to help be a part of that, so maybe we'll see more like people that are sort of being your own travel agent or more local guides or something like that. And then, the other thing, and this is exactly what we do, is I think we're moving away from like really transactional type of travel. Like it's, if you try to go book a trip on like Expedia or something, it's like really stale and it's like an awful experience, you know what I mean? And if you think of that experience against what it actually is like to travel, which is like the best thing ever, it's such a disconnect,
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do, and I think a lot of startups are trying to do. Obviously it can't be as fun as travel itself, but try to get a little closer to that and try to and allow people to sort of enjoy the experience of leading up to the actual trip, So I think there's that, and then there's obviously a lot of stuff with just data that I think across any industry people are doing. So, like for us, creating a recommendation engine and basically trying to understand more of you as a traveler is very important, because if you go to Expedia, like the page that you see is the exact same page that I see, which is the exact same page that you see.
Yeah.
Right? And the truth is, like, we probably travel in 3 completely different ways, right? So why should content be delivered that way? So I think people are using data in much more smart ways.
Okay. And then going back to, you were talking about local and sort of this disintermediation of the process.
Yeah.
Do you have any an inclusion of services like Airbnb with Wanderfly, or are you looking to?
Yeah, we're looking at different, we have a lot of different partnerships, and we're looking at some of them that, like Airbnb and stuff like that. I don't know where we're gonna go with those yet, but yeah.
How would you imagine you would vet services that aren't like, an established hotel chain or whatever, as you're recommending, this to be the place to stay in a destination?
Say again, how do you vet
Say Airbnb,
Yeah.
like if you're going to Paris, you might have a hotel that you have a knowledge or understanding of this being like a great facility, but as a site that's sort of an authority on these destinations, how do you vet these disintermediated services so you feel comfortable like recommending them to people?
How do we do it
Yeah.
internally? How do we select which Airbnb property, if we did a partnership with Airbnb, is that what you mean?
Or like what would the process look like for feeling comfortable enough to start recommending Airbnb destinations?
Right. So we have a lot of algorithms that we use to sort of normalize a lot of because we work with a lot of different partners, and they all obviously structure their data in a different way, and we try to sort of make sense of it by drawing out commonalities. And that's like part of the initial filter, and then our content managers essentially sort of determine which things are good and which ones aren't. And then going forward, we're getting users to do more of that and getting users to do more recommendations. So we're gonna, Wanderfly can't be like the be all end all of the arbiter of what's good and bad, you know what I mean? So I think, allowing some of the community to vet that is our best bet.
Okay. And then you also spoke to, just local and being interested in local areas. Do you see Wanderfly pulling back from being, a lot of this is very international travel destination, but highlighting things in people's backyards and giving people ways to explore their own locales,
Yeah, I see some of that. I mean, we have a ton of destinations in our database, so we're still going to be very international, very broad in that way, but we're basically, we want to get deeper into the content, so we're very broad right now. We want to start, making it a little more rich. So I think, we'll start, if you want a great New York City day trip, we should be able to fill that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What differentiates you from all the current products and the competitors in the market right now?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. I think our technology, in terms of our algorithm and having an engine, that's a very powerful thing. I think the other thing, and this is true of a lot of successful startups today, is just the user experience, and the design is a huge. I know that's a very intangible thing, but it's often the reason why you use a site, right?
Yeah.
Because the experience is nicer, So I think that's sort of those are sort of the big ones.
Okay. Let's see here. We had some specific questions we were just asking about Wanderfly. Do you have an internal question and answer service for Wanderfly, or is it very much like recommendation wanderlists? Is there the community talking to each other?
Yeah, not right now. There will be though, but yeah, not right now.
And are exclusively arranged vacations to various destinations a potential extension of your brand? And what other areas do you believe are a natural extension of the current mission of Wanderfly?
Exclusively
arranged vacations.
Arranged vacations. You mean sort of like a jet setter or something like that?
I think that, and maybe for lack of a better example, Ferran Adria has this restaurant and only X people get to go. Arranging things that are limited in number or quantity.
Do I think that we're gonna do that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, it doesn't exist right now. I don't know exactly yet if we're gonna go in that direction.
And what other areas do you feel like are extensions of what you're doing at Wanderfly now? Or potential areas to explore as an extension of what you're currently doing?
Let's see. I don't know. I mean, we're just moving into more like personalization and, allowing you to input more content yourself, allowing you to discover more people than what exists right now. So sort of building more of a Wanderfly community for you to see other people.
Mm-hmm. So then I'm just going to ask some other questions that aren't necessarily directed to Wanderfly, but are just about travel and technology in general. So Wanderfly is very much about like planning traveling, but there's also the travel experience as far as the transportation and what you're doing while that's happening, and then the destination itself. How do you feel like tech is being implemented to change people's experiences of trips while they're like at their destination and while they are traveling? Like, do you? I don't know. That's kind of open-ended.
I mean, obviously, like mobile is becoming extremely important and is starting to guide people more. So, I mean, the obvious thing is like using Foursquare and their list features or their tips or something like that, and sort of using that sort of on the ground in order to discover new places that you should go to. Any service that is really into like photos right now is like so many of them are doing so successfully, and a lot because a lot of them are tying themselves to travel in some way. I don't know if that answers your question. It's sort of open-ended, but do you see some, sorry, I'm thinking through this. As far as like just experiencing, say riding on a train or riding on a plane, like using your time while you're traveling, how do you see technology filling in there? Obviously it's very mobile and sort of tablet oriented, but how people are spending their time with technology while they're traveling. I mean, in terms of like what sort of trends do I see in that area?
So what do you see, fueling engagement while people are riding trains or using different forms of transport?
Well, I think some airlines are doing this really well, right? Because I was on like Virgin America the other day, and they had a bunch of like city guides like sitting on the back of the seat, on the display. So, I think sort of using technology to sort of drive future action while people are spending some of the idle time is pretty smart. It's not really what we're doing, but help you do some of that planning for those different types of transportation. Right now you have to go to you go to an airline site to figure out your airline, you go to Amtrak to figure out your train. If you want to find out about bike rental, it's like completely different. I'd like to see somebody kind of help you figure out all of your transportation in one space. Is that where you're going?
Yes, that would be awesome. Do you feel like general American public is ready to transition between modes of transportation, or there's still like space for, say, like Midwesterners to get accustomed to the idea of taking a train and then taking a bike or whatever in their travel experience?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess it depends where they're trying. It's like if you're going to Europe, you better get used to the fact that you're going to be like training, in some places. Do you mean like in America? Would they be willing to do that?
Yeah.
I guess I think so. I mean, I don't know. I think so.
And this is not quite related to that train of thought, but there's something that came up while you were talking. As far as Wanderfly goes, I know you have the ability to say like, I'm interested in art, I'm interested in whatever, and it spits out. Say, let's go to the Louvre in Paris. Is there anything to account for things that people don't know that they're yet interested in, or sort of like looking at say XYZ inputs and saying, based on these things, you may not be aware of this, but you might really enjoy this experience. Sort of adding like.
So we have a feature called like also recommended. So if you, let's say you knew which destination you want to go, and let's say you typed in like Miami or something like that. We have a feature that says like, once you get to that page, like if you like Miami, you might also like Cannes, Beverly Hills, or something like that, and that's based on intelligence that we have around how different cities are related to one another. So it's sort of like, if you think of Amazon's like product pages where you go there, it's like people who viewed this also viewed this sort of thing, and it sometimes surprises you with, you know, new suggestions. So we have some of that built in, yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Does design efficiency play into Wanderfly at all in the way of like looking at green traveling or you know, just like consumption and being more considerate of modes of transportation and
Yeah.
that during the travel experience?
I mean, we have a whole theme around like eco and sustainable travel. It's more around cities to go to where there are a lot of like eco-friendly practices and stuff like that, and less about like the transportation for getting there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the thing that we do is we allow people to input the price that they want to spend. So we try to find sort of the best bang for the buck, you know. So that is trying to be efficient for the user.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you, for the eco experiences, are you considering like, say, eco hotels to recommend, or like an airline that may have carbon offsets, or is it just like, say,
It's more cities.
destinations?
Yeah, it's more destinations. Yeah.
Okay. And then just, we were wondering if you had any thoughts on travel and real-time information and how that's changing the experience or augmenting, you know, what it means to be traveling now versus 10 years ago.
A real-time
Information.
Information like what?
So anything from your experience with airlines and being able to see,
Yeah.
you know, things are on time or that something's,
Yeah.
you know, delayed weather patterns, whatever, to, you know, being in a place and having like real-time transit information or, you know, and any slew of things, but having that data at your fingertips.
Well, I think what that might mean, and I don't know if this is to our detriment or other travel, but there's, I think, a lot less sort of micro planning that's happening, right? Like, I think obviously you know where you're going, and I think you know the big highlights and you know your hotel and stuff like that, but you sort of, I mean, even how I travel sort of leaves some of the smaller details to like when I'm actually in need of those details, you know? Whereas 5-10 years ago, I'd have like, you know, mapped out everything way in advance, and you know, I remember like, you know, buying train passes in Europe and having the schedule like, you know, like everything to a T, right? Because you didn't know the next time that you might have access to that information. So I think some of the micromanagement of trip planning is sort of is more spontaneous, or is more like it's just done when it actually needs to be done rather than planned.
Cool. And then as far as just other travel services and you know, particularly startups, but this can apply to a range of things. What do you see that's happening today that's really interesting beyond Wanderfly, like other people working in their field?
Yeah. Just within travel or any sort of startup?
Travel and transportation.
And transportation. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I think like, I'd be interested in seeing like Goala just kind of relaunched as sort of like a travel local guide brand or something. So I'd be interested to see how they do it. I think they've got tremendous data with all their check-ins, so it could lend itself to some pretty cool travel guides. I'm trying to think of other companies that are, you know, there are some that are making real strides in social, so like Gogobot or like Trippy, which just launched the other day. I think I mentioned them already, but like Viable, which is doing sort of peer-to-peer travel experiences, is super cool because you're really getting in touch with local people and there's a value exchange happening. And then, you know, there are obviously a ton of like flash sales around travel, which I don't know if there's sort of a clear winner for one yet, but I think some of them are doing cool stuff.
And you mentioned GoBot and Trippy. Can you just explain what those are a little bit more?
Yeah, so Gogobot is, let's see, their premise is really about people want to get travel advice from their friends. So it's purely built around Facebook. So you basically say, hey, I want tips on New York or something like that, and it pings all your Facebook friends. And then Trippy is actually quite similar to that. I think they have more like trip itinerary sort of builders, so some of their features are different, but the premise is kind of the same.
Okay. And with some of those things, do you see their services translating from big to small in the way that you can organize with your friends to go on an international trip, or that those same services could be used to organize like a dinner or something?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not like a dinner. I mean, it's not like, I think it's still within a travel context,
Okay.
So I don't think you would do that. But it could be a small trip for sure.
Okay. I don't know, did you have anything?
No, I think that basically covers the brief.
Okay. Well, I'll just explain what we're talking for. So we are working with BMW, and they're interested in sort of the future of travel, and specifically they're interested in how real relate to travel. And so it's fairly vague, because they're also really, I think they're interested in both the travel experience, and then they're also not couching all of their bets in just being cars. They're really looking at how people are traveling, no matter what it means.
Yeah,
So
that's cool. Are they thinking of launching something themselves, or they kind of just want to learn about it? Or?
I think this is just for idea generation and just sort of like dipping their toes in the water.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're really interested in the entire experience, and so we're talking people like yourself, people who are doing like some curated magazines, travel things, some like innovative hotels and different transport people. So
have you guys talked to the because we've been talking to them quite a bit with their iVentures group. I don't know.
I think we're pretty closely related to the iVenture.
And I know they're just really interested in like mobility in general. Have you guys talked to Uber?
Uber?
Yeah.
No, I don't think we've talked to Uber.
They sit in our space actually.
Oh, okay.
And I know the iVentures guys were really interested in them. I don't know if they ever made an investment or whatnot. But they are do you know what they are?
Uber, yeah.
Yeah.
They're the cab service, right?
Yeah. That actually reminds me of now I have much better examples for you, but like Get Around, do you know that?
Yeah.
Right. I think like sort of the Airbnb for cars, like I think that is like a really disruptive type of business. Although I realized after they launched, like another service already exists like exactly for that, called like Relay Rides or something like that. I was like shocked that, because I saw Get Around launch at TechCrunch Disrupt, and everyone was like, oh my god, it's so disruptive. And then I looked it up. I was like, Relay Rides has been around for like 3 years or something like that, doing the exact same thing.
There's actually a couple of things like that,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I know, apologies for being so broad, but
No,
there's a lot to handle there. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you had any questions for us, or if there's
No,
anything
so
else.
you guys are doing this, presenting it back to them basically with just all sorts of findings, and then
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Go into a report.
and then they'll use that somehow for
Yeah.
whatever it is they're doing.
Mhm.
Cool.
Great.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
We appreciate